How's it going? I'm Jared Gillis. Today, I wanted to share with you a very unique way to have a rear view camera behind your RV. You can see this one looks like a rear view mirror, so it might be one of the sleekest, most dependable, high quality, natural way to see what's behind your RV while you're towing. We'll get into all the features, what's packed into this, and how I set it up on our RV. It's definitely different than the majority of the things that you see for rear view cameras for RVing, so let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. So now to start off, WolfBox did send me this unit to review. And when I was reviewing it, this is the G900 Pro, I said this would be cool if it had multiple cameras for RVing. They said, hold up for a minute, we got one coming out in a couple of months. It's now a couple months later, and now we have the G900 Tri Pro. So now we have the ability to have multiple cameras. So what does that mean for us in the RV? This is how we set it up for our setup. We have the screen and the dash camera mounted where the rear view mirror usually is. There's multiple ways to be able to set this up, but then we have an additional camera that goes out the back window, giving you that rear view look, like if you were just looking in the rear view mirror. That's on the screen. And then when the RV is hooked up, we have that third camera slot that gives us that third view behind the RV. So that way we can see what's directly behind the RV. So all the things that are packed into here are kind of bonuses on top of that, but the main features are we're getting a dash camera out the front, we're getting a rear view look out of the truck, which it's also recording, and then a rear view look behind the RV, which it's recording that as well. So it's recording all three cameras at the same time in this unit to an SD card. And for me, this solved quite a few of the problems that I had with rear view cameras for RVs. Is number one, I don't like the big, bulky type of screen that usually comes along with that. It either takes up a massive amount of space up on the dash, or it gives you something that you have to look really far down, which is not natural and kind of takes your eyes off the road. This seemed to be a great solution to be the most natural way to be able to look behind the RV when you're driving. Which gives me the most streamlined setup we've ever had inside the truck. This takes up the space of the rear view mirror, which isn't any additional space. Then I have my phone mounted on the typical magnet mount. So that gives me my tire pressure monitor system, gives me my dash camera, gives me my rear view mirror, and an RV GPS, all without cluttering up the dash setup. So this was key in order to having such a sleek setup. So we'll look at the rundown of that setup, but let's first look at the features that are packed inside the WolfBox. For starters, the front camera is 4K, the rear is 2.5K, and the third camera is 1080p. That front camera at 4K is definitely an improvement over the Garmin dash camera that we had before. You can definitely see more detail and for farther. The screen itself is touchscreen, so on those cameras, if you needed to tilt it up or down, it gives you the ability to look more than just that initial view. So if you wanted to look down from the top of the RV, you can scroll down, which can come in handy when pulling into an RV site. It's also controllable by voice, so if you wanted to save a video, you just have to say a command.
Lock video.
So that way you can pull the video up later. There's several other commands. You could even change the camera if you wanted to just by using the voice control.
Show front camera. Show rear camera.
You can also go in and change all the different settings. So if you wanted a different display on there, if you didn't want to have your speed and direction on the display, you can turn that off, or you can even have the time displayed on there. I like a more clean display. But it does have the GPS, so I do like it giving me my direction and my speed on the screen. If you wanted to change the settings using your phone, it does have Wi-Fi, so you can turn that on, connect to it with your phone, so that way you can go through, look at any of those files that are already on there. You can download those directly to your phone, or you can change some of the settings for the setup. Now, there are more features, but these are the ones that stood out to me. So now that brings us to how do we use this with a towable RV? Because this is not a wireless system, and I'm not the only one that's been trying to do this. There's been quite a few people trying to figure out how to be able to use this on a towable RV. So let's dive into the setup. So first off, you can mount this in a few different ways. You can mount it like a regular rear view mirror, or if you didn't want to replace your mirror and only use it when you're towing the RV, they do have these straps. You can strap this directly to your rear view mirror. The straps came with it, and the windshield mount was an accessory. Second is making the connection. So we need to connect to power. We have a connection for GPS, and then connecting the cameras. Running the wires for the cameras is pretty simple. They give you a tool to be able to tuck it in behind the trim work around the truck, and it's a pretty thin wire, so it tucks in pretty easily. I took the extra wire and coiled it up behind the soundproofing behind the seat and tucked it away. The cables are different for the 2.5K camera and the 1080p camera. I'm saving the 1080p camera for the back of the RV. So I have one camera mounted on the back window of the truck, then I'm gonna run the wire for connecting to the RV. They have different length wires that you can get, so I got one that was 100 feet in length, so that way it's gonna be long enough for the truck and the RV combined. So I'm having these camera wires pop out right next to my 7-way connection for the fifth wheel in the bed of the truck. And I wanted to test this out because my plan was to be able to have a camera on the back bumper of the truck, and I wanted to test this out. So I used just what I had. I had some 4-way connections to test this multi-camera idea. Okay, here's my plan and what I'm trying to accomplish. I have my camera back here on the back bumper, and I have a wire run to the bed of the truck. This camera is going to be useless when we're connected up to the RV, but comes in pretty handy when we don't have the RV connected to the truck. And the splicing was easier than I expected it to be, even just using those 4-ways. But if you put this on a drivable RV like a Class A, a C, or a B, you're not going to have to do any of the splicing. It just comes to where you're able to use it. But I think I have an idea to make this switching of the cameras really easy and more of a permanent solution. So let's get to running these wires. This is where I need to get the wires from the camera, across the roof, down the wall, across the RV, and out near the fifth wheel kingpin box. Okay, I made this way more difficult than it needed to be. That camera mounts right behind that wall over there, and I can reach that by dropping this vent, and I can feel the back of that. What I should have done is just put a little piece of track right there to be able to get to these cabinets. And then once I get it down into the underbelly, I don't have to take everything off underneath there. I can run a fish tape almost from the front to the back and have one big run with very minimal intrusion into the RV to run those wires because they're so small. The real trick to making this work for towable RVs and making it work well that I'm pretty excited about is I have these aviation waterproof connections. They had a 4-pin option that's gonna work out perfect, something that I can mount in the bed of the truck and give me a solid connection. So this is a connection that you have to solder, but here's the trick of why I chose this one. I did it because I can have a camera on the bumper. So if I have things in the bed of the truck, if I have kayaks back there and I can't see out the back window, I can just switch over to the camera on the back bumper and still have a rear view on the screen itself. Then when I'm connecting up the RV, I just disconnect that camera and plug in the RV camera, which is why I chose this plug, because the way that it's oriented and mounted on here, it kind of keeps all that tucked in and out of the way and away from damage. So just finished a travel day, and I gotta say this worked out really well. Being able to switch from that bumper camera to the RV camera took hardly any time at all. Really not any more to the process. It's where all of our connections are anyways, so I didn't have to do anything on the screen. It all happened right here, right where our additional charging is when we're towing, our 7-way connection for brakes and lights and all that. So it was just one more connection to make right here. And I have to say that the wired connection, I did appreciate it. We've used wireless systems in the past. Sometimes they drop out, sometimes they lag behind a little bit. With the wired connection, we didn't have to worry about that at all. It was just solid the entire time. You can get extensions where you run a booster to the front of the RV, but I thought if I'm running wires, why not just do a wired connection? So that's what I'm trying now, and it worked out fantastic. So definitely a win for trying to streamline everything that's inside of the truck. So now that brings us to the other equipment that we use, like our tire pressure monitor system, our GPS, all that plays into keeping it clean inside of the truck. So our tire pressure monitor system, what we use and why we use it is the Tire Minder, and it's the one with the phone app. One less device to have on there. We do have this. This is like the bridge gateway, and it will give you an alert, but it's just an audible beep, and it gives you a light letting you know that there is a problem. Then you can look on your phone and see what the problem is. And you don't really need to look on your phone because they do have an app for CarPlay. So you can see all that information right there. We already have the screen. Nothing additional is needed. And this little bridge gateway is definitely not needed on the dash. We usually just kind of set it off to the side so that way we can hear it if there is a problem, but definitely not something we need mounted up there, taking up space and creating clutter. So out of the way, but gives you the pertinent information right on the big screen, right in the center of the dash. As far as the GPS, we still use truck maps when we're wanting to navigate and make sure that we don't go down a road that we shouldn't, making sure that we're on those truck approved routes, along with having an atlas inside the truck. But we also do use Google Maps so it can display on the larger screen for CarPlay. This is something that we've upgraded inside of the truck. Ours didn't originally come with it, but we swapped it out so that we could have some of those features built into the truck. That's a whole story in and of itself, but it's nice to have a big display in the center of the truck that gives you a lot of information. So I'm going to leave links down in the description to everything that we talked about. So if you're wanting to streamline anything, kind of minimize the bulk of what's happening in here, like some of the gear that we use, all those links are going to be right down below. And links to the WolfBox website, because there's more built into that dash camera rear view mirror system than what we went over here. But those are the features that really kind of stood out to me for RVing. So I think that's going to do it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this, seeing what we use in our RV and how we like to see behind our RV while we're going down the road. So as always, if we don't see you on the road, hopefully we will. See you next video. Take care.